also feel like the angle that I'm at now is just kind of weird because I am standing up today because I thought I'd change it up a little bit, but just like I feel so like tall compared to my books now. So today's 7 on Sunday. Today's video we're going to be talking about the books that we get recommended the most to us. So I'm going to be talking about some popular authors slash books here because there is books that I keep getting recommended to me, but in general I just see these recommended the most because they're the books that get the most hype and the most talked aboutness, and like not that they're necessarily being recommended to me because there's only one that I haven't read and I don't think anyone's actually recommended it to me, but I want to read it from how many people I've seen reading it and talking about it. But I'm excited to get into the video. Just a staple, anything by J Maas is going to be recommended to you because she is one of those like well-read authors that everyone's obsessed with, and I do love her. I love her writing. Every time I read her book she doesn't disappoint me, and I'm just holding up this one because it was the closest one to me, but I definitely think that she is someone that you will always see getting recommended, and I've recommended this series to a lot of people that I haven't read it yet and I'm just like, pick it up, it's so good. So she is definitely one of those authors that you just see all the time. And on that same trend, Cassandra Clare is another author that always gets recommended, but she is a harder one to get into because if you're gonna pick up a Cassandra Clare book, you've got to commit to like 20 books here. But she is definitely one that I see talked about a lot. Her books are always around and they are always getting recommended, and whenever someone says that they haven't read them, there is a bombardment of people saying that you need to read them. She's definitely up there as an author that you need to read, but just someone that you always see recommendations for. I wanted to get the two authors out of the way and the rest are just books that I see recommended a lot. And the next one I want to talk about is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is something that I see all the time, and honestly I did pick up this book based on recommendations and then I read it and I hated it. So it's not exactly a fun time, but this is one that I see people talk about all the time and they're always recommending it. It's always on top lists of like basically everything, and I will continue on with the series down the track like when I eventually get to it, but it is just one of those things that I see so much. Like it is one of them hyped books that I don't understand the hype, but it's still recommended a lot. Now for the book that I haven't actually read and I don't even own a physical copy of it, but The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab. I don't know which name she's actually gone under for the release of this book, but at first I was not interested. I didn't really know what it was about. I didn't really care, but then I saw people starting to read it and starting to really enjoy it, and I mean like in that like all-encompassing enjoyment that sometimes we have with books that get released where everyone's just obsessed completely with these releases. So I started to get intrigued, and then I went and looked at the synopsis, and then I was like, oh my god, this kind of sounds like Age of Adeline, which is a movie I really enjoyed, and now I'm really intrigued to read this book, but it's very expensive, so I will eventually get my hands on a copy of this. But I just know that from everyone talking about this book so much, it has been a recommendation that I definitely want to read now because it just sounds amazing. Next I want to talk about Skype by Neil Shusterman because everyone was talking about this book. I got the first and second book for my 19th birthday, but it wasn't until years later that I finally picked up the series, and it was because everyone was raving about it because the third book was coming out pretty soon after I read these books, and I was just really excited for the hype. So this is one that even though I owned it, it took until I got them recommendations to actually pick it up that I did, and I'm like, my god, like this is literally one of the best trilogies I've ever read. And even though the third book did let it down a little bit, like the middle book is like the peak of the series. Feelings that I had at the end of book 2 like still stay with me, but definitely this is something that just got recommended a lot, and I recommend this to people because it's such an interesting story and it's such a unique story concept that it's something that everyone needs to pick up. Next I want to talk about the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I feel like these get recommended a lot because they're fairy tale retellings, but they've got a sci-fi spin on them and they're just very interesting. And even though I still haven't read the conclusion because I don't know what I'm doing, I started a reread and I literally reread the first one and didn't get anywhere else other than that. So I still need to reread Scarlet, reread Cress, and then finally get to Winter. But I feel like these books were just recommended so much for the fact that they are retellings, and it's just such an interesting way for them to like retell them. I always see it on top lists and recommendations, and it's worth it. Like these books have such good stories in them and I just love them so much. And the last book I want to mention is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is definitely one that was recommended a lot, but when I read the synopsis I just had no idea what was going on. This is definitely one that you had to go in blindly, so I feel like this is definitely like a faith recommendation because I feel like a lot of us were thinking like, what the hell? But then you read it and it was an amazing story, and even the second one like wasn't as good but still enjoyable. And I also think the hype is there for how beautiful these editions are. I love them so much. I again think this is one of those whimsical reads where it really did just like take over everyone in the moment that it came out, and it was such a fun time. Like honestly, books like this are so fun to see on BookTube or Instagram or Twitter. You have so much fun watching it run through everyone, and it's just amazing. So these are definitely a good pile of books to recommend people, and I'm sure I've recommended some of my friends like at least all of these books, but it's because they're amazing. But anyway guys, that is all for today's video. And like, does anyone agree with me? Like, did you all see these books being recommended? Because I feel like it was such a thing. Like all of these authors slash books, I have seen them everywhere, and I still continue to see them everywhere, but they like deserve the hype mostly. But anyway guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!